History is written by the victors, but the ledger of wealth is written by the ruthless. If you look back through the centuries, from the Medici bankers of Florence, to the railroad tycoons of America, to the algorithmic emperors of Silicon Valley, you will find a single, uncomfortable truth. The rules for staying rich are very different from the rules for getting rich. Society teaches you the rules of maintenance. Save, invest, work hard, be honest, play fair. These are the instructions given to the sheep to ensure they produce wool quietly. But Machiavelli knew that the wolf does not follow the shepherd's guide. The logic of acquiring wealth in any era, whether it is gold, land, or data, requires a fundamental shift in how you view reality. It requires you to abandon the comforting lie of meritocracy. Most people believe that money is a reward for being good, for being talented, or for being hardworking. This is the first delusion you must shatter. If hard work were the path to riches, the woman carrying water in a remote village and the construction worker breaking his back on a site would be the masters of the world. They are not. They are the fuel. Machiavelli would look at the modern economy and tell you plainly, wealth is not attracted to virtue. It is captured by leverage. The logic of getting rich begins with the realization that you are in a state of economic warfare. The battlefield changes. The weapons change from swords to stocks, from cannons to code, but the nature of the conflict remains absolute. It is a battle for resources, and resources are finite. To enter this war with a chance of winning, you must understand the concept of virtue. In Machiavelli's time, this did not mean moral goodness. It meant prowess. It meant the raw, strategic ability to impose your will upon the world. In the pursuit of wealth, virtue is the ability to see the world exactly as it is, not as you wish it to be. The poor man wishes for fairness. The rich man studies the unfair advantage and exploits it. This is the first principle of the ruthless logic. Find the asymmetry. In every market, in every era, there is a gap between perception and reality. There is a place where value is being generated, but not claimed, or where fear is suppressing the price of an asset. The Machiavellian does not follow the herd into safety. He waits for the herd to panic, and then he buys their fear. You must stop viewing the economy as a cooperative system. It is an ecosystem of predation. This does not mean you must be cruel, but you must be unsentimental. When you negotiate a salary, a contract, or a deal, you are not looking for a fair exchange. You are looking for the upper hand. If you leave the table feeling you gave as much as you took, you have not won. You have merely survived. The logic of wealth demands that you capture more value than you release. This is how accumulation happens. It is the law of the surplus. If you are paid exactly what you are worth, you will never be rich. You will only be sustained. To get rich, you must decouple your time from your income and your effort from your reward. You must build a mechanism where the effort of others, the money of others, or the technology of others works to fill your treasury. Consider the role of fortuna, or luck. Machiavelli famously said that fortune is a woman who must be beaten and coerced. While the language is archaic and brutal, the financial lesson is timeless. You cannot wait for the perfect time to start. You cannot wait for the market to invite you in. You must force the issue. The logic of getting rich requires a bias toward aggression. In a world of hesitation, the swift strike is worth more than the perfect plan. Most people spend their lives analyzing, preparing, and refining their ideas, waiting for the risk to disappear. But wealth is the premium paid to those who embrace the risk that others fear. If you wait until the outcome is certain, the opportunity is already gone. The masses buy when the line goes up. The master buys when the streets are bloody, even if the blood is his own. This brings us to the most dangerous realization of all. The morality of the poor is a cage. You have been taught that it is noble to be humble, to be content with what you have, to avoid conflict. These are virtues for a peaceful soul, but they are chains for an ambitious mind. To get rich, you must be willing to be disliked. You must be willing to be misunderstood. You must be willing to cut ties with those who anchor you to mediocrity. Machiavelli warned that a prince who tries to be loved by everyone will eventually be despised by everyone and overthrown. In business, if you try to please everyone, you will end up with a product no one needs and a bank account that is empty. You must choose your market, choose your allies, and ruthlessly ignore the rest. The acquisition of wealth is often a lonely path because it requires you to see people not just as friends or family, but as variables in an equation. This sounds cold because it is, but the logic of the machine does not care about your feelings. It cares about efficiency. Is this person an asset or a liability? Do they bring energy, connections, and ideas, or do they drain your resources and distract your focus? The ruthless logic dictates that you prune your social circle with the same precision you would prune a dying garden. You cannot build an empire on a foundation of dead weight. Furthermore, you must understand that in the early stages of getting rich, you are not building a reputation for sanctity. You are building a reputation for competence and power. It is better to be feared for your competence than loved for your kindness. When people know that you deliver, that you execute, and that you do not tolerate failure, they will bring you their money. They will bring you their opportunities, not because they like you to hold their hand, but because they trust you to protect their interests. In the ruthless logic of the market, trust is not built on warmth. It is built on track record. The world is full of talented people who are poor. It is full of geniuses who are forgotten. It is full of hardworking people who die with nothing. Why? Because they lacked the ruthless logic to convert their potential into kinetic power. They waited for permission. They waited for the gatekeepers to open the door. But the Machiavellian knows that there are no gatekeepers, only obstacles to be removed, bypassed, or bribed. You must stop asking for a seat at the table. You must realize that the table is yours the moment you have the strength to overturn it. As you begin to apply this logic, you will notice a shift. You will stop looking for jobs and start looking for leverage points. You will stop looking for savings and start looking for asymmetry. You will stop worrying about what is fair and start obsessing over what is effective. This is the shedding of the slave morality. It is the awakening of the sovereign mind. And once this mind is awake, it looks at the world not as a playground, but as a mine. A mine where the gold is deep, the darkness is heavy, and the only light is the one you bring yourself. But finding the gold is only the first step. The true test of the Machiavellian is not just in taking the prize, but in constructing the reality that allows him to keep it. Because once you have seized a foothold, the real game of manipulation begins. You must now convince the world that your greed is actually their gain. Once you have accepted the nature of the battlefield, you must master the art of the mask. Machiavelli wrote that everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience what you really are. In the pursuit of wealth, total transparency is a death sentence. If you reveal your full ambition, you invite competition. If you reveal your full strategy, you invite sabotage. The logic of getting rich dictates that you must be a master of optics. You must learn to wear the face that the market trusts, while your hands do the work that the market fears. This is the duality of the lion and the fox. Most people try to be the lion, loud, aggressive, demanding respect through volume. They think wealth comes from dominating the room. But the lion is easy to trap. The lion is predictable. To accumulate wealth in a crowded world, you must first be the fox. The fox does not roar, he maneuvers. He understands that the most profitable path is rarely a straight line. It is the side door. It is the loophole. It is the handshake that conceals a dagger. When you are building your initial fortune, you cannot afford to be an idealist. You must be a pragmatist of the highest order. This means that your word is a tool, not a shackle. You keep your promises when it benefits your reputation, and you break them when the cost of keeping them outweighs the value of the relationship. This sounds immoral to the average person, but the average person is not building an empire. They are building a cage of obligations. Consider the concept of the great lie. Every great fortune begins with a projection of value that does not yet exist. The startup founder sells a vision of a software that hasn't been coded. The real estate developer sells a luxury lifestyle on a plot of dirt. The investor sells confidence in a market that is crashing. This is not fraud. In the Machiavellian sense, it is leadership. You are forcing the future to align with your will. You must be comfortable inhabiting this space between truth and reality. You must be able to look a potential investor, partner, or client in the eye and speak of your success with absolute conviction, even when your bank account is hovering near zero. Why? Because money follows certainty. If you doubt yourself, the money will flee. If you project absolute, unshakable belief, the world will conspire to make you right. However, the fox also knows when to play dead. There is a strategic advantage in being underestimated. If you look too dangerous too soon, the existing powers will crush you before you can rise. It is better to appear slightly less intelligent, slightly less ambitious, slightly less capable than you actually are. Let your competitors dismiss you. Let them think you are lucky rather than calculated. When your enemy is making a mistake, do not correct them. Do not interrupt them. Let them believe they are winning, right up until the moment you take everything. This is the discipline of silence. The need to brag, to show off your cleverness, is the mark of a novice. The master allows the results to be the only evidence of his genius, and even then, he shrouds it in mystery. But you cannot do this alone. You will need alliances. Here, the ruthless logic is most critical. You must never confuse an ally with a friend. A friend loves you for who you are. An ally supports you for what you can do for them. In the accumulation of wealth, you do not need friends. You need aligned interests. You must structure every relationship so that the other person's greed works in your favor. If someone helps you because they like you, that help is fragile. It can vanish with a mood swing. But if someone helps you because it makes them richer, that loyalty is ironclad as long as the money flows. Therefore, do not rely on gratitude. Gratitude is a burden that people rush to throw off. Rely on dependency. When you hire, when you partner, when you negotiate, ask yourself, how do I make it impossible for this person to succeed without me? You want to be the bottleneck. You want to be the key to the gate. If they can bypass you, they will. So, you must construct a reality where you hold the proprietary knowledge, the critical relationship, or the essential asset. You are not building a team. You are building a machine where you are the engine and they are the gears. Gears can be replaced. The engine cannot. Be wary, too, of those who claim to have no interest in money. They are often the most dangerous of all. The person who openly wants to get rich is predictable. You can negotiate with them. You can buy them. The person who claims to be motivated by art or justice or passion is hiding their true drive, often even from themselves. They will betray you, not for a better price, but for a feeling of moral superiority. They will burn your business to the ground to feel like a martyr. Machiavelli would advise you to avoid these people, or, if you must use them, to keep them far from the levers of true power. Deal with mercenaries. At least a mercenary has a price list. As you navigate this phase, remember that your greatest asset is not your capital, but your lack of attachment to the method. If a strategy stops working, abandon it immediately. Do not cling to a bad investment because of pride. Do not hold on to a dying business because of nostalgia. The logic of wealth is the logic of adaptation. You must be like water, formless, taking the shape of whatever vessel holds the opportunity. If the era demands technology, you become a technologist. If it demands manufacturing, you become an industrialist. If it demands speculation, you become a gambler. You have no fixed identity. You are a vessel for accumulation. The moment you say, I am this kind of person, you have limited your ability to see where the money is moving. You must be nothing so that you can become anything. And in this becoming, you will face the inevitable attacks. Envy is the shadow of success. As you rise, you will be criticized. You will be accused of being greedy, heartless, lucky. Do not waste a second trying to defend your character to the mob. The mob does not want your explanation. They want your failure. Every minute you spend arguing with a detractor is a minute you are not spending compounding your advantage. Silence is the ultimate insult to the envious. It tells them that they do not exist in your world. Keep your eyes on the summit. The air is thinner there. The conditions are harsher, but it is the only place where the lion and the fox can truly feast. The climb is not about who is right. it is about who is left. War is not won by the size of the army, but by the swiftness of the blade. As you begin to accumulate resources, you enter the most perilous phase, consolidation. This is where the amateur gets slaughtered. The amateur makes a little money and relaxes. He thinks the hard part is over. He buys the celebration before he owns the victory. The Machiavellian knows that the moment you stop advancing, you begin to die. There is no plateau in the logic of wealth. There is only growth or decay. Gravity is always pulling your empire down. You must constantly supply the energy to keep it rising. Here, you must apply the principle of well-used cruelty. Machiavelli taught that if you must inflict pain, you must do it swiftly and decisively. In business, this translates to the elimination of weakness. If a venture is failing, kill it immediately. Do not bleed money for months, hoping for a miracle. Hope is not a strategy, it is a liability. If an employee, no matter how talented, becomes toxic or disloyal, remove them instantly. Do not negotiate. Do not give second chances. A second chance is an invitation for a second betrayal. When you fire, you do not do it with hesitation. You do it with such finality that the rest of the organization understands the standard without you having to speak a word. This applies equally to your competition. The modern world tells you to respect your rivals. It tells you that competition is healthy. This is a lie told by the weak to protect themselves from the strong. Competition is a threat to your margins. It is a threat to your sovereignty. If you have the power, do not just beat your competitor, absorb them or annihilate them. Machiavelli warned that men ought either to be well treated or crushed, because they can avenge themselves of lighter injuries. Of more serious ones they cannot. If you leave a competitor wounded but alive, they will learn from your tactics. They will study your scars, and they will return with a hatred that you cannot calculate. When you strike, strike to end the game. Buy their debt, poach their best talent, undercut their pricing until they suffocate. This is not personal. It is physics. Two objects cannot occupy the same space of dominance. But as you wield this power, you must master the delicate art of distance. You cannot be everywhere. You cannot make every decision. If you do, you have not built wealth. You have built a high-paying job for yourself. To be truly rich, you must become a ghost in your own machine. You must design systems where the ambition of others fuels your engine. This requires a shift from being the commander to being the architect. You build the maze, and you let others run through it, looking for the cheese. The architect understands that people are driven by two things, fear and greed. You must utilize both. Pay your key people well, better than the market, so that their greed binds them to you. Let them taste a lifestyle they cannot afford to lose. Once they are accustomed to the wine and the status, they are yours. They will self-regulate. They will work late nights not because you ask them to, but because they are terrified of the alternative. You have colonized their imagination with the fear of poverty. This is how you create loyalty that does not depend on love. Love is fickle. Mortgage payments are consistent. However, never let them know the full extent of your operation. Information is the only currency more valuable than gold. If your lieutenants know everything you know, they do not need you. Compartmentalize your empire. The marketing arm should not know the full financials. The product team should not know the exit strategy. You are the only node where all lines of information intersect. This asymmetry ensures that you are the only indispensable person in the room. Even if they conspire against you, they will lack the pieces to complete the puzzle. Paranoia, in this context, is not a mental illness. It is a security protocol. You must also learn to despise the status quo. The market is a living, breathing beast that hates stability. What worked yesterday is the seed of tomorrow's bankruptcy. The ruthless logic demands that you are willing to cannibalize your own success before someone else does. If you have a product that is making millions, be the one to invent the thing that destroys it. If you do not, a hungry kid in a garage will do it for you. Do not fall in love with your cash cows. Treat them as expiring assets. Squeeze them for every drop of milk, but be ready to send them to the slaughterhouse the moment their yield drops. Sentimentality is for poets, not for princes. During this expansion, You will be tempted to seek fame. You will want the magazine covers, the interviews, the applause. Resist this. Fame is a tax on wealth. It alerts the taxman, the regulator, the lawsuit seeker, and the thief. The most powerful money is dark money wealth that moves without a footprint. Be the force that no one sees coming. Let others be the face of the brand while you control the equity. Let others take the credit while you take the dividends. The logic of getting rich is not about being recognized. It is about being effective. Every time you flash your wealth, you are giving your enemies a target. Every time you speak your plans, you are handing them a map. Silence is not just a shield, it is a weapon. It forces your opponents to guess, and in their guessing, they make mistakes. And finally, in this stage of accumulation, you must guard against the poison of enough. Enough is a concept for the mediocre. The economy does not pause. Inflation does not sleep. Decay does not take a holiday. If you aim for enough, you will eventually have nothing. You must aim for excess, not for the sake of gluttony, but for the sake of insulation. You need a margin of error so large that even a catastrophe cannot break you. You are building a fortress, and a fortress needs walls that are higher than necessary. Do not listen to those who call you obsessive. They are looking at the world from the valley. You are building on the mountain. The storms are different up there. The logic of the mountain dictates that you never stop reinforcing the foundation, because the avalanche is always waiting. You have climbed this far not by being lucky, but by being relentless. Do not let the comfort of the view soften your resolve. The drop is still just as deadly. The final stage of the ruthless logic is not about accumulation, but about sovereignty. Most people assume that getting rich is the finish line. They imagine a life of endless leisure, of beaches and retirement. This is the fantasy of the laborer. The reality of the prince is different. Wealth is not a destination. It is a heavy crown. And a crown that is not defended is quickly stolen. Once you have built the fortress, you must realize that the greatest threat is no longer outside the walls. It is inside. It is in your own blood, your own mind, and your own comfort. The first internal enemy is the softening of the spirit. History is littered with empires that fell not because of a stronger enemy, but because they became addicted to their own luxury. The founder is a wolf, the inheritor is a poodle. When you have everything you want, the hunger that drove you to hunt begins to fade. This is the moment of maximum danger. You must artificially maintain your edge. You must impose discipline on yourself when no one else can. The ruthless logic demands that you continue to live with a degree of asceticism. You may sleep in silk, but you must wake with the mindset of a soldier sleeping in the mud. If you begin to believe your own hype, if you begin to think you are destined to win without effort, you are already dead. The market will devour you the moment you blink. Then comes the problem of succession. This is the tragedy of most great fortunes. You spend a lifetime building a machine of dominance, only to hand it to a child who has never known hunger. Machiavelli observed that hereditary power is the most fragile because the heir often lacks the suffering that forged the father's wisdom. To protect your legacy, you must be as ruthless with your blood as you are with your competitors. Do not give your children wealth, give them tests. If they fail, cut them off. It is better to leave your empire to a capable stranger than to an incompetent son. A stranger will preserve the structure. A fool will sell the bricks to buy toys. You are not raising a family. You are raising stewards of a dynasty. If they cannot hold the sword, they do not deserve the throne. You must also master the final level of detachment, the immunity to public opinion. In the beginning, you hid your moves to avoid scrutiny. Now, at the summit, you will face a different kind of pressure. The world will demand that you apologize for your success. They will demand that you give back in ways that satisfy their moral envy. They want to see you humbled. Do not give them the satisfaction. If you engage in philanthropy, do it not out of guilt, but out of strategy. Build libraries so they see your name. Fund hospitals so they fear your death. Use generosity as a shield to deflect the arrows of the mob, but never, ever apologize for winning. The moment you apologize, you validate their resentment. You admit that your success is a sin. It is not. It is the result of superior logic applied to a chaotic world. Stand tall in your accumulation. The lion does not apologize to the gazelle for eating. Ultimately, the logic leads you to a singular realization. Money is the only true form of liberty in a society of slaves. Everyone else is trading their hours for survival. They are trapped in a web of obligations, forced to smile at bosses they hate, forced to live in boxes they can barely afford. They call themselves free, but they are terrified. You, however, have bought your way out of the human condition. You have purchased the ability to say no. You can walk away from any deal, any person, any situation. You can reshape your environment to fit your desires. This is the closest a human being can get to being a god. But this godhood is lonely. You will look around and realize that very few people can understand you. You cannot complain to your old friends. They will think you are bragging. You cannot show weakness to your new peers. They will eat you alive. You must accept the solitude of the command. You are the captain of a ship that never docks. The ocean is vast, the storms are constant, and the crew is only loyal as long as you feed them. This is the price of the ticket. If you wanted companionship, you should have stayed poor. You chose power, and power is a jealous lover that demands your total attention. So, as you stand on top of the mountain of value you have extracted from the world, look down with a clear eye. Do not look for happiness. Happiness is a marketing term sold to consumers to keep them buying things they don't need. Look for greatness. Look for impact. Look for the undeniable fact that you were here, and you bent the world. The ruthless logic of getting rich is not a guide to a moral life. It is a guide to an effective life. It is the rejection of the comforting lies of the nursery in favor of the cold, hard laws of the jungle. The world is not kind. The world is not fair. The world is simply a collection of resources waiting to be claimed by the one with the strongest hand and the sharpest mind. You have the logic now. You see the strings that move the puppets. You understand that the game is rigged, and you have chosen to be the one rigging it. Do not hesitate. Do not look back. The past is a sunk cost. The future is an asset to be acquired. Go out there and take what is yours, not because you deserve it, but because you have the strength to hold it. This is the way of the prince. This is the way of the world, and it will never change.